The G20 has kicked off in the Indonesian island of Bali, where global leaders are discussing issues such as food security, debt relief and the war in Ukraine. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed the summit where he called for Russia's destructive war to end. Mr. Zelensky addressed leaders including China's Xi Jinping and President Biden in a video link. Here's some of what he had to say.
I want this aggressive Russian war to end justly and on the basis of the UN Charter and international law. Ukraine should not be offered to conclude compromises with its conscience, sovereignty, territory and independence. We respect the rules and we are people of our word. Ukraine has always been a leader in peacekeeping efforts and the world has witnessed it. And if Russia says that it supposedly wants to end this war, let it prove it with actions. Apparently one cannot trust Russia's words, and there will be no Minsk III, which Russia would violate immediately after signing.
While opening the meeting, the host, President Joko Widodo, warned that the war in Ukraine was impacting food, energy and financial security. He said it would be difficult to move forward until it was over.
We are facing crisis after crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic has not ended. Rivalries continue to heighten, the war continues, and the impact of this crisis towards food security, energy security and financial security is truly felt by the world, especially developing countries.
Well, our Southeast Asia correspondent in Bali, Jonathan Head, told me more about today's discussions on Ukraine.
Yes, that is the main focus. It was inevitable with President Zelensky addressing all the delegates here by video link and giving that impassioned speech that he did, calling them to make this the moment when they closed down the Ukraine war, that they shouldn't give in to Russian nuclear blackmail. There's a kind of split here, really, in some ways, although everyone here agrees the war in Ukraine is an urgent priority and there's been a united call to end that war as soon as possible. You've got the US and its allies, the G7 group, if you like, really pushing for a hard line against Russia, for Russia to be condemned and isolated. And to some degree, the Russian foreign minister, who's come instead of Vladimir Putin here, does cut something of an isolated figure. He's been placed together. You see him sitting with some of the other foreign ministers. But other countries here aren't willing to sign up to quite such a confrontational approach. They say, yes, the war in Ukraine must end. Perhaps you use more subtle diplomacy to do it. And they're also concerned that the real issues they want to talk about here, these are also urgent, getting the global economy going again, dealing with acute problems with food security and energy supplies, and looking at climate change, that those are being eclipsed by the concerns about Ukraine and the kind of superpower rivalry we've seen between the US and China. So there is a difference in perspective, which has made it quite difficult for them to agree on a final communique. We believe they have agreed, and we believe that all of them will sign up to a very strong statement on Ukraine, but it's unlikely to be as strong as what is wanted by the United States and its allies, who argue ultimately that a lot of the problems they want to talk about here, like food security, are actually being massively accentuated by the Ukraine war. So there is that difference here in how you approach the Ukraine war that makes it quite difficult to find a consensus on other issues.